think we should.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday night. We're back in action over here. I am your host, as always, Timucin, over here in Chicago. Beautiful weather. Well, I mean, it's a little humid, but it's to be expected. It's not bad to take walks and stuff. Taking some ridiculously long walks to get rid of this guts. So the streak must go on. 5-6 miles a pop. So hopefully I'll be able to fit behind the desk when we get over there to do the fundraiser over here. But Gally's with us. Gally, what's happening?
5 to 6 mile walks just gives me agita thinking about it.
It's not that bad, actually. It's a pleasant walk, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm not minding it. Probably eventually we're gonna have to get to the jogging parts, but there's no way in hell I'm jogging 6 miles right now. So that's gonna be phase by phase. Bickler is quite the jogger himself. What's happening?
Yeah, it's how I got my friendly shape. It's going. It's the week is off. It's unbearably hot here. So
Yeah, honestly, the days I kind of hide inside, but in the evenings is all I ask for it to be not ridiculously humid and stuff like that. But it is freaking end of July, and going to Milwaukee for the weekend for the German Fest. That happens in Milwaukee. Grab Layla and meet Jasmine over there and stuff like that. Let's hope to God it's not over 90 degrees or something, because there's no schnitzel in the world to make that bearable for me. And really, I'm there pretty much for the schnitzels overall. Okay, so let's talk. The biggest transfer this has not been answered to: who's going to replace legend George Sefton, says Steven. That's, unless this is really George posting it, so that's a ridiculous coincidence, by the way. Because I will play it probably sometime during the week. I still have to edit the video. But George has been extremely kind to actually donate an autographed book to our silent auction for the 23 Foundation Potathon we're going to be doing. And he also was kind enough to send us a video kind of urging others to contribute and stuff like that. I thought it was really, really nice. It's very George Sefton, let me put it that way. Very well spoken. And when George talks, people speak. Yes, I don't know who the heck is going to replace it. Tony is in the house. Tony's in the neck of the woods. He can do it over there. And BJ is here. BJ, hope you're feeling better, buddy. But BJ, even from his kind of recovering bed rest over here, was kind enough to hook you gentlemen up with the trivia of the week. This is kind of an interesting one. So let's see how this goes. Okay. So the Harvey Elliott scored his debut goal for Liverpool in the 76th minute of an FA Cup 4th round match at Anfield versus Cardiff. That was February 6, 2022. He came in for good old Naby at the time as part of a double substitution. Which Liverpool player made their debut that day in that double substitution? Oh, not in that double substitution, but in the same game, coming in for Curtis Jones in the 58th minutes.
The hell kind of question is that?
I'll give you a tip before you guys start crying, but it is relatable to current topics. Let's go about that. And it's not
is it Minamino?
No, because then it would not be relatable to common current events. Come on, Bickler.
Why wouldn't it be?
Why the hell would we talk about Minamino today? Unless you have some plans I wasn't aware of.
I don't know. We haven't talked about anything yet today, so I don't know.
Can you? When was the game again? Harvey Elliott scores the goal, subbing on for Naby. It's his first goal for Liverpool. It's a League Cup game.
FA Cup game, or round match.
Oh,
February 6th, probably 2022.
February 6th. Diaz.
Yes, sir. See, it's topical, man. Topical. Bingo. Good job. Come on, Bickler. Expect better out of you.
I fucking mail this section and every week. Next, move along.
But the correct answer is yes. That was Luis Diaz's first game. So we'll definitely talk about Diaz moving forward. Obviously, a lot of offers and stuff like that. Steven says he is. Yes, he is. Definitely is. I mean, Honestly, you can kind of tell. Big shout out to Abigail, for example, too. I spoke, not spoke, chatted back and forth a long time today. I always like seeing people, and it really impresses me more when somebody is kind of like popular, have a lot going on and stuff like that, but can still make the time for bozos like us, let's face it. So that shows a lot by myself. That really, to me, shows the actual love of the city and the club, more than anything else, when somebody makes time out of their like busy ass day. I mean, George has a ton going on right now too. I know, like, he just had an interview going out the other day. So like these people making time really shows me like how much they actually value the club and the city and stuff like that. So it's been really, really great having those people like have us help us out in the podcast, the podathon. So actually, you know what? Let's start with that. Let's have some fun, right? Let's start with that, because I do think we should definitely talk about it. I know we will be posting in terms of some of the things that are coming our way from the foundation, in terms of like what's going to be in the silent auction. So we'll definitely talk about that going forwards. When Gally heard that, he took off. Gally
Yeah,
knew
he's out.
this was coming, because this is only part one of the comedy today. But yeah, so we are going to be at Carragher's on August 9th, August 8th through 9th, correct? Am I saying this right? So I don't screw this up. August 9th through the 10th, noon to noon. We're going to be there doing the podathon. And obviously, the silent auction is going to be starting on the 1st. So do join that. And there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming over. There's a McAllister jersey. There's actually a jersey signed by Trent and Hendo, I thought, which was really cool. So they're sending us quite a few jerseys from there. Like I say, like Abigail is sending some artwork and stuff like that, along with a lot of other things. But I thought this graphic was freaking awesome, because I figured, like, I'm like, dude, this is everything about the podcast in one graphic. But then AI said, you know what? This doesn't show everything about the podcast. So I made this, and we might actually maybe put this on the shirts that we're going to kind of like give away over there. Because I felt this is right here is just gold. Just freaking gold right here. So
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, you lost weight, and I essentially turned into the redhead from Bad Friends. I mean, it's pretty fucking
no,
amazing.
dude, it's the infamous Leo and Stitch on there. It's Gally asking for somebody's shirt. And you with your infamous pots, we always talk about, that's always cooking in the background
We
during the
need Patrick
show.
Bamford in the frame somehow.
It
That was a
doesn't get
missed
better than that.
opportunity.
But yeah, please do join us for that. And there'll be a lot going on. We do really need your guys' help in spreading the words as much as possible. For the hourly sponsors, we only have 7 out of the 24 hours sponsor right now. So we are looking for more sponsors for the hour. $100 to $500 based on your budget, size of the sport or club, or if it's a personal one, your individual budget and stuff like that. But please pass the words. Let's raise as much as possible for the foundation over here. Anything to add that I'm forgetting over here? I mean, I can leave this on the screen so we can have it like the whole show like this. But
Yeah,
It's
nobody
probably a good
needs.
idea not
Yeah,
to, actually. We want people to show up for that thing and actually give us money. Somehow I aged about 15 to 20 years, and it made me, it's the first time there's ever been a photo that made me look older.
no, man, you look good.
Oh, I look great. I mean, look at me. I look creepily like I don't even want to look straight at the camera. I'm like, no, I'm not really asking for this t-shirt.
I like how I'm looking at your sign and Bickler disappointed with the pots. Yes. Okay. So, yeah. All comedy aside, yes. Please do help us out in spreading the word. Even if you're not able to sponsor, just please pass it on to someone who might be interested, or pass it on to your local sport or club and stuff like that. But let's talk a lot of Liverpool stuff. There's a lot happening over here. Let's start with the big news. Bickler, Ekitike incoming, after talking about like different possibilities. Isak, which I will get back to, but start with Ekitike. What is your first response when you hear it's all said and done? When you hear the "here we go," what is your response?
Oh man, dude, I feel like this whole transfer window has been some sort of like weird fever dream. Like we haven't spent like 3 years, and all of a sudden we just go buy an entire new starting 11, including players that are like considered the best in the world at their respective positions. I think this is an interesting one. I think the ceiling is so high on this player, um, and I think at the end of the day, when you look at this player, you got 5 players across the Power 6 conferences in the entire all of Europe. There's 5 players that had was that over 200 touches in the opponent's box, over 100 shots, and over 50 take-ons. We now have 2 of the 5 players in Mo Salah and Ekitike. And I think the thing about this player in general, I think he's up for the challenge. I think this is a next step in his career. And I don't think, it's an awful lot of money for a player who is not the finished product, right? So I think we have to like square that up. But I think what you have with him is you have a player that's got a generational ceiling, who's proven that he can do it at pretty high levels in the Bundesliga. He benefited from playing off Marmoush, but I think individually on his own this year, he proved that he can do it. Um, I think what I like about this signing is he has the things you can't teach, and that is the pace, the sort of like just big bodied player that he is. Um, but he's the things that he's really good at are the off the ball stuff and the chance creation stuff. And those are things that you can't, those are things that are harder to teach, right? I think the things that he's going to have to prove on is he's going to have to be more clinical in front of goal. His efficiency rate has got to be better. Like he benefited from just volume, right? So he's going to have to, the efficiency thing, he's going to have to become more clinical. The other thing that's a big question mark about him is for a 6'3" player, he's not very physical. So he's going to have to figure out that physicality in the Premier League. Those are similar questions that we had with Isak when he was coming into the Prem. So
Yes.
I think and obviously their games are very similar. So he's a guy that loves to take people on, and I think we really need that from somebody besides Mo, right? And like if we're going to be losing Diaz, we're losing that. Diaz could take people on 1v1. This is a player that likes to do that, so we get a little bit of that back. There are question marks, right? But anybody at that age is going to have them coming into the Prem.
That's the thing. I feel like, Gally, there's a lot of like anybody who's normally, I don't know, go back 3, 4 years. If we made a signing like this, we'd be all over the moon, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about him on the Friday morning show because you were around with me on Friday morning about Ekitike. And I feel like there is a huge concern that everybody has on the back of their mind only due to Nunez, it feels like. I mean, that's the only player that everybody is afraid it's going to be another Nunez. But I was saying it this morning. I mean, we've been talking on Discord. I feel like if you were not getting Isak, and maybe you can throw Alvarez in there for somebody who has Premier League experience. I think it's like a great signing in terms of it's like a Isak mini-me. A younger version of Isak is basically what you're getting. Obviously, less proven and from somewhere else, but he is coming at half the price, even though his price is really high. He's coming at almost half the price or a lot less than what Isak would be coming at, which almost gives you more money to be able to do something else with it afterwards and get a younger version of the guy that you're after.
Yeah, I mean, listen, is there risk? Of course there is. There's risk anytime you make a transfer of 55, 60 million euros. But they're paying what, 69 million pounds it is, I think, ends up coming out to be. When you compare this to some of the money that's being bandied about right now for, Manweki and Alanga to Newcastle, this money's being spent all around the league. He probably is has the highest upside and the most up and coming striker in all of Europe. Like all of Europe under the age 25. We're signing him on the ground floor. We're putting him around world class players, maybe even better players. And we're not making it so that the entire system revolves around him. Part of what I think Darwin Núñez failed himself, but another part of what made Darwin's ability to bet in was that Klopp basically pushed all of his chips into the middle of the table with Darwin. He was ready to change the offense to the point that he had Mo Salah considering leaving the club and being angry and fighting with him because he was doing everything he could to build the formation and changed the setup from running through the right wing to running through the center of the pitch with a player that it wasn't going to work with. I don't think any of that's going to happen. And the most important thing of all this is that Arne Slot has signed off on this signing, wants this signing, and Arne Slot loves to coach players, and this player has so much. He matured late in his career. So there's so much more. There's two more levels for Ekitike to go up, and some of that will happen when he gets better positional awareness, when he gets built into a system. He was playing in a system with two strikers purely to support Marmoush. The whole thing was about supporting Marmoush, which is why he had so many chances created the first half of the season. I think what elevated this for Liverpool and gave them the confidence was that Omar Marmoush went to City. Frankfurt basically thought it's going to fall apart now. And they built the second half of the season around Ekitike, and he delivered them Champions League football. Like, I think they believe this is a year faster than they expected to lose the player. I think they thought they'd have him for one more year. But this is a club that knows what they're doing. They sell well. And I think they've made a really, really good sale here. And I think Liverpool's made an exceptionally good buy.
I mean, they made a good buy. If you look at Frankfurt, I mean, it's great business for Frankfurt, obviously, in return on investment. But one day after him, when he was like in PSG, and like it was the youngster that didn't live up to the the hype and stuff like that behind that drama with Mbappe and stuff like that. I think it was a good buy and an investment on their part to go after that kid. And obviously he's paid off. And I think that's the big thing. When you look at the highlights, a lot of the highlights you're like with Marmoush, you're like, man, Marmoush is really good. Is Marmoush making him look good, or is he making Marmoush look good? And then as you kind of like advance throughout the season and look at him more, some of the things he does, it gives me, I mean, I know they're totally different kind of players, but like Bobby vibes in terms of like sometimes like a soft touch he does to a guy coming behind him to shoot and stuff like that. There's a lot of setup being done that when you get it from Nunez, it's usually because he's getting attention or he's going wide, he's creating space. What I like about seeing from Ekitike, just from highlights, obviously, it's not like like watch a lot of like Frankfurt games, but I like the fact that he's doing it in tight spaces inside the box and stuff like that, and not by just going to the corner and creating space or something like that. I guess the biggest question is when we're spending a lot of money like this, Bickler, that you talked about all the money we're spending, they're going mostly the Bundesliga, kind of like me going to the German Fest. So they're going to the Bundesliga. Do you think when you compare the whole Ekitike experiment that's coming up compared to the Nunez experience, do you think he has a leg up coming from Bundesliga as opposed to coming from, you know, Portugal? And not only that, but coming from, originally being from France as opposed to like being growing up in like with South American football?
Maybe. I mean, I think the Bundesliga definitely is a closer comp to the Premier League if you were comparing the two leagues. But I also remember Darwin's performance in the Champions League, and he was like very, very difficult for everybody he faced, not just us. So I think that's tough. I think the advantage that Ekitike has, and I think the way, like if I was the manager, what I tell him and what I love about this signing is like you can bring him in. He doesn't like you don't have to rely on him to score goals. Because if he's doing those things that he did at Frankfurt and creating those chances, consistently running back posts, those goals are going to come. But he's also going to be distributing the goals across the rest of the team. And that's the one thing that I do. One kind of thing that I do want to watch is like he's used to everything coming through him, and he just had shot volume. He's not going to get that at Liverpool. And they're not going to want him to do that. And if he does that, Mo is probably going to strangle him right on the pitch. So, like, it's going to be very interesting. I think it's like I look at him and it's very weird to me because like this is a player that I watched when I was very young and like is aging. He kind of caught the tail end of his career, but like and I don't want to put this on this player, but like in terms of the way that he physically looks and plays with the ball at his feet, reminds me a lot of Thierry Henry. Really does. Like in terms of the way that he likes to be out in open space and run at people. Silky smooth, really good distributor. Very smart in terms of picking where he attacks in the spaces on the field. So like just an amazing, incredibly high ceiling on this player. But I think the main thing is if he can come in and he doesn't feel like he has to carry that burden on the goals, and he just worries about putting himself in good positions and creating chances, he's gonna be on the right foot and the right path coming out of the gate.
That's the thing. I mean, he's going into a great situation, and we talked about this before in terms of like some of the difficulties like Nunez has had, and the timing of it was definitely not good because he came with Holland. There was a lot of comparisons, starting with that like Community Shield game and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a different scenario. I think he's coming into a. I mean, you look at this this weekend's game against Stoke City, that first goal where like Virts kind of like drives and like gets that pass to Saboslai. I was just, we were watching that. I was like, that's going to be a Ekitike making that run and probably like slotting that in. And that's basically what you want in front of that, as long as he times his runs and stuff like that and doesn't pull a lot of Nunez stuff. Michael says Gakpo, Ekitike, and Mo will work as a front three. And I think so too, in terms of the combination. But here's the thing. I mean, he's talking about Diaz, Nunez, and Chiesa all being sold. Before I get to that part, let's go and touch on Isak real quick. Because there was a lot of talk this weekend, like where he didn't play, and Eddie Howe said he didn't want the distractions and stuff like that. But obviously, there are other rumors in terms of like maybe there's like other stuff going on that he might be sold, kind of like everybody was up in arms. And it's not a good sign when you have to take your striker and not play him because there's a lot of talk. Because that also means why is his mind distracted if he was really committed to and he really wanted to stay at Newcastle? To me, that's a bad signal by itself. I know Eddie was trying to kind of like protect him and protect the situation. But to me, Gally, that almost sounds worse in a way because his mind is already all over the place and he's not in a mindset to play a game. Is there a world where the Isak thing still happens? Because I know that's the fear of many out there.
I mean, I played this game with words where I said it's 1% until I see it happen, and then when it happened, everyone's like, "You were the asshole. Said it was just 1%," and it was like I was just trying not to build myself up and get sucked in. And if I had said we're going to get Verts, then someone would have jumped down my throat and said, "You're an idiot. Why would you think we were going to get that guy?" Um, could it happen? I think it could happen. Do I think it will happen? No. Do I think it should happen? People are going to get mad at me here. Probably not. Like, I think if they were actually going to spend that much money, and you are assuming the only way you spend that money is because Diaz goes, you may be better off going after Rodrigo and like really rebuilding. I feel like once you make the commitment to Ekitike, it's a weird feeling if you go and bring in Isak and now he's your backup striker and then I keep reading people, well, he can play out on the left. It's like, here we go again. Now we're just like
Yeah.
deciding where people were playing. We are buying a younger version of Isak because I believe the club, they were willing to go to 130 million. It will take a lot more than that to get Isak at this point. Like if they sell, it's going to be 140, 150. He's 26 going on 27. Like by the time you sign him up, it's 28, 29, 30. Like to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I think you bring in Ekitike, you try to sign Rodrigo. We'll talk about other moves you can make. And you build it out. If Ekitike absolutely doesn't work and next year you feel like you have to go back into that and Isak's available, maybe then it makes sense. But I just don't see it happening. I know everyone wants to keep stoking the flames on X and Twitter and all these places, but for me, it's a non-story.
I just don't. I mean, when we were talking about, I think we were talking about it Friday morning. Like my preference, if somebody said, "Hey, do you want to spend 120, 150, get Isak, a proven guy?" But let's face it, we mentioned it last year in terms of like the effect of the injuries and stuff like that. Um, Oh, well, there we go. See, we have an insider because Michael is Swedish. I didn't want to assume based off of the last name or anything like that, but that's actually, yeah, those usually those media sources that are closer are a bit more reliable because they kind of know the personal scoop and stuff like that. But I think, I was more keen on signing a guy like Ekitike, still having extra funds, and then if you sell Diaz, you can get a Rodrigo or another top player because you do still need somebody behind them. So I'm a bigger fan of that. I know there's a risk with signing a young player that's not Isak and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, every transfer is ultimately a risk. We've kind of been spoiled because most of them have been successful, and we kind of dwell on the one or two like Nabi and like Nunez that have not worked out. And I mean, you are not going to hit on every single transfer you do. I mean, there's so many variables. Sometimes it's not going to work. Let me ask you this though. This brings us to another player. We were talking about this morning, Bickler, for Nunez, because I know earlier Michael was talking about like Nunez being sold. If an offer doesn't come from Italy, right, in terms of what we want, the amount that Liverpool is asking for, to me, it sounds like it can, unless we lower the amount we want to get, it feels like the only source it can come from is Saudi. And then Nunez will have to want to go to Saudi. Do you think Ekitike coming in instead of Isak coming in would give actually more hope for Nunez to be able to? If I'm Nunez, I feel like I can take over Ekitike to earn a spot if I do well and keep good form, whatever it takes. It may not be realistic, but you know what I mean? In his mind, as opposed to taking over a starting job from Isak that, came for 120, 150.
I mean, it might as a player he might feel that way. I don't think the reality of that is it, because I think the manager made his decision last year over the duration of a season, which is why I think a lot of times like we take these preseasons as like tryouts when they're not. Like the only thing that we're trying out is maybe some player combinations, giving some younger kids a look. But like I think the majority of these decisions are made over the course of an entire campaign prior. So I think like, I think that decision's been made. Is there? I don't think that we're definitely not going to force a sale, right? So like, if there's not an offer there that makes sense for the player, and the player is not willing to do it, yeah, there are definitely worse situations than having Darwin come on through the duration of the season as a fourth attacker to create chaos. Like there just is. So yeah, I mean, I think if it's not a deal to be made that makes sense. I could see him being here this year.
The only issue with that is, and I do agree, don't get me wrong, I do agree because I feel like, if there's no option, as much as I'm kind of done with the experiment, it's not a horrible situation, Gally, to have him come off the bench and create chaos and all that kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, I go back to like what Michael is saying here, that he's not a slot player. I don't want another guy around that's going to be another Chiesa either, even though he's available and he can do some stuff. Is never going to get to like the minutes because Slot just plain old does not like trust him. So do you take your losses to a team like Napoli if he doesn't want to go to Saudi and take an extra 10 million, 15 million hits so you can get a player to Slots who Slot will be keen on using. So you actually do have 5, 6 options and not 4.5.
I mean, we all do this whole thing where Slot isn't keen on using him, but he played him in some of the most meaningful and important matches down like before we got into the stretch run of last season. He was playing. He started him at the beginning of the year. He played him he had Diaz and Nunez during the period when Jota was first hurt, and he played Darwin more. Darwin had some big moments. I don't get the whole thing, and I still feel like he made some mistakes. Like I think Darwin should have started both legs against PSG, and I think we had a better chance of beating them if he had, because we needed someone to run at their older back line. We needed someone to try to create problems against them and use pace, and we didn't. So I think in some ways, I think Darwin does offset what Ekitike does in a lot of ways, and I think it would help because you'd have a player who understands the system and a player that Mo is comfortable playing with, as we've talked about many times. And I think it's part of the reason they like the idea of Ekitike is he's kind of like a better version of Darwin, and he's younger. I They are never going to settle and just sell at a loss. If they don't believe it is a deal that is beneficial to them, I think they'll keep the player the way that they've kept players for years at a time. And I that's my fear. I think he's going to go to Saudi, or I think he's going to be here on September 1st. I don't think there's any other option because I don't think there's any chance they like loan him out with an option to buy. Like they would rather keep the player than not sell for a profit. And I think that's the most important thing. They want to turn Darwin Núñez into a profit. And with the way his contract is, they got to get about 50 to 60 million for that to happen. And to me, that's got to be Saudi.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I feel like The problem is if when Napoli is moving Osimhen to Galatasaray, but they're not getting the money up front. I felt like if they got the 70-75, which is why I was saying like Galatasaray can afford that, which they can. So it's going to be 40 and then 35 is what it sounds like. So they're not going to have that cash to suddenly be able to give it to you and say, that's fine, we'll pay an extra 5 and get Nunez because we got 75 for this guy kind of a deal. So I think that kind of like messes up the whole Napoli thing. And in terms of what we expect, I think you're right. It's probably going to be Saudi or bust kind of thing. I mean, like Dara says, I'm not big on the whole. That's why I put the chaos in quotation marks. I don't. I when you say Gally, like he understands the system, like familiar with the system. Let's say, is he like? I just don't see a guy that's familiar with anything. I just see a guy still playing street ball, if you will, and not understanding how to press, what angles to take, and stuff like that. I just don't kind of like done with the experiments. I mean, still like an easier guy to root for, except when he looked like he gave up and slots called him out on it. But I would rather not continue with the experiment, take the loss. But you're probably right, Gally. I don't think like the way we run the finances, I don't think they will cut the loss over here. Michael says, fun. But actually, welcome aboard. Welcome to the page. And if you want to head on over to YouTube, we do have more content on YouTube, so you can subscribe over there as well. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, do hit that thumbs up so some poor soul like Michael, for example, on YouTube can get suddenly exposed to our page and see us as well. So it goes a long way. Where are you at with the Nunez thing, Bickler?
I
So
think
you
I'm
were
with everybody.
okay with it just because of lack of would you be willing to take the cuts just to kind of like move on?
No, I mean,
Okay.
so like, yeah, I haven't. I'm not a fan of just binning players like we've done with Darwin in general. I think he offers far more than a lot of people want to come around to, just because like people are frustrated with him watching him go off sides for every single match repeatedly, which is understandable. But I think he does bring a lot to the table, and I think like let's see if the shaved head theory works out. What if by some weird like GI Jane thing that he like just turns into a different player? Like, I don't know. Hearing a lot of rumors about this closed friendly. Let's just see what happens.
I mean, did you guys watch the 15-minute extended highlights of the close friendly?
Yeah, I watched it afterwards. As of this morning, I had only seen like the shortened, like 3-4 minute version of it. I did find the honestly like what I really liked out of those highlights were Neoni and Frimpong, mind you. But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I feel like what it does bother me though is like I get all these people saying like, well, there's just no way. I understand he scored 4 goals and has an assist in literally like 44 minutes of live play. He has 4 goals and an assist so far in the preseason in 2 matches, and people are like, well, it isn't just, and like the manager had a choice. He didn't have to play him. Like they could have played different people. They could have done it in different ways. Like there have been guys
I don't know,
that
who would they
haven't
play
gotten
though,
this
for
much
example?
run. I think they're playing him because they one want to put him in the shop window, and two, they want to see what type of attitude and what type of response they're getting. And we all talk about like, oh well, Darwin can bring you this, Darwin can do that. I've got people today trying to shoehorn playing Ekitike out on the left when Paul's been telling me for 3 years that Darwin's better on the left. So if you lose Diaz and you don't sign Rodrigo, but you sign some other player and he ends up being your cover on the left wing, you could do worse than having him on the left. Like this is where I'm coming back to, and I think that we are all just assuming that we totally understand what Slot wants out of this setup based on what we saw last year. But we all acknowledge last year he basically coached within constraints of not being able to buy any players. Like Darwin Núñez, for all of his faults, the one thing he does is make runs past the last defenders and run onto balls, which all I keep hearing is all Wirtz wants is people who make runs and move into open space and create room for other players. And I know you say he doesn't do the things in the system. I just always come back to Mo Salah still to this day says he is the central striker he appreciates playing with the most of anyone in his career. Not on this team. He has said, I like playing with Darwin Núñez more than any other striker. And I know everyone laughs at that, But this
I
is
do. I got a bridge to sell
but
if you're
no,
buying
but
that.
you think Mo Salah's lying?
I think Mo Salah says stuff like that, knowing Nunez and how fragile he is, so he doesn't block Mo on
I've
Instagram.
never
I think
heard
Mo
Mo
has
Salah.
zero reason to go out of his way to say that,
I've
nor
never heard
would
Mo
he.
Salah say a nice thing about anybody just to
But
say
this
it.
is my point, because that's what this dude is. You didn't see a lot of guys constantly like delete his Insta. The guy is not as mature, and he needs to be constant. I mean, we talked about this, right? He needs confidence.
I just
He needs
don't
to
think
be
Mo
back
cares
to
about
self.
But
anybody on the side that way. I don't think
I
he
mean,
cares enough to
he,
go out of his way to do that to
Mo
players.
Salah didn't try to say nice things about Jurgen Klopp when there was drama blowing up all over the place. He wouldn't say a single thing to diffuse all the issues with Sadio Mane for 2+ years. I don't think Mo Salah says things that he doesn't mean, in my personal
No,
opinion.
because if you listen to Mo and when he talks about like like teaching like new players and stuff like that, if Nunez is going to Mo and if Mo knows Nunez's mindset, I can see Mo saying that to kind of like provide him with like emotional backing and support and stuff like that. Like I do not buy the fact that he would not rather play with, mind you, he hasn't had, I mean, like basically maybe he's playing striker because there's no way in hell he prefers him over Bobby. There's
This
no
is the
way he
part.
prefers him over
Well,
Bobby. I mean,
this is our opinion, though. This is the one thing I always come back to. Like, there's a reason that Jurgen Klopp put all the eggs in that basket and went to sign the player. He believed in him. It didn't work with how they set it up. I'm not saying that the guy is great. I'm saying that we've made him out at this point like he is Fulcrum that West Ham signed. That he's just this absolute bum that came to the Premier League. He literally, his goal involvement per 90. Paul's shown the stats. Like, some of his per 90 stats are actually really, really good. His finishing wasn't great, but he still gets chances. And the guy we're signing is basically a young version of him. So people are going to have to wait for that maturity, because everything that is said about Ekitike is he's the exact same way. He's a little immature.
that's I
He
think what
needs
like style wise and stuff too.
he needs to be built up. I understand what we've seen and what didn't work last year. I just don't believe that there isn't this world where this club says, you guys keep saying when it comes to Diaz, Kanate, when we talk about selling players, what's the replacement cost? Right now, if you have to replace Darwin Núñez and take a loss on him, you're better rolling the dice and letting him play 10, 15 minutes a match and try to score goals and make things happen than you are taking a 10 or 15 million pound loss and extending most likely a veteran that doesn't fit your mold. If you keep Darwin for one more year, the most it costs you, honestly, is 5 million if he starts one match to Benfica. Other than that, you take another year off his book value, which means you can take a 10 or 15 million loss on his sell price. And if he has a good year, to Paul's point, and you get the skinhead and he scores 15 goals as a sub, you sell him for more next year than you do taking a loss this year.
I mean,
You
everything
just don't
I
want to
just
watch
don't
him.
buy that. I just don't buy that you will get that from him. I just don't buy that Slots would trust him enough to do that in the first place. If he has an alternative, unless Ekitike is playing the same way as Nunez, I'm really in deep shit anyway. But I just don't, making runs and stuff is freaking worthless if you're offside on like 3/4 of those runs. And your pressing is worthless if you're just fucking running and not taking angles and stuff like that. I mean, I know that's my opinion on the guy. If he's still a Liverpool player, and I can see him if the money is not right, still being like a Liverpool player, I guess. But I think you're spending so much money to cut the 10 million over there seems nonsense.
Interesting side point. Frankfurt was the 6th worst pressing team in the Bundesliga. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I saw a couple of like people from like I like I say I watch some Bundesliga, but not a lot, and not a lot of Frankfurt games to be honest. But like in terms of like his pressing and stuff, like you look at the stats of his pressing and stuff like that. Like I say, when people see Nunez running, they think he's pressing. He's not. I mean, just look at some of the angles he takes. I'm hoping there's a place, but I guess that brings us to kind of like a Diaz thing, because that seems a lot more likely because there is a market for him. There are offers for him. Do you see a world, Bickler, where we do convert the money saved from the center forwards plus the Diaz money being converted into a player like Rodrigo.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I still think you have center back issues you have to address, and I still think that's in the back of their mind. So, I mean, if you could save that money and go ahead and get a Gahey, and then Diaz goes, and you replace it with Rodrigo. I mean, that's pretty exceptional business across the board. We are entering that weird territory that I thought we would never talk about, where it's like, how many changes to your starting 11 really sets you in a position where you have to find team chemistry and almost start from scratch again. I think we're getting there.
I mean, I've saw this before, and this was before obviously the Ekitike thing, Gally, and it was before. I mean, it was after we signed the three and they were official and stuff like that. It's like concern about changing too much. How much of a concern is that when the front line? I mean, there's like uh, Chiesa has an offer that just came through from like Dave in terms of like 12 million from like Atalanta or something like that. If you move on and if you're changing four or five up top, how much of a concern is that at the end of the day? Because it is almost like what we said was our strength last season by not making any signings and continuous consistency. That kind of goes out the door, even though you're bringing a ton of quality.
Can't take this. Um, I'm not as worried about the front, to be honest. If you were making 4 out of 5 changes in the back, including the goalkeeper, I'd have a bigger issue with it. I think part of what allows you to tinker with the wide players is that you are still built around your entire spine of this side, outside of Verts, right? The spine of this side, Allison, Kanate, assuming he stays, Kanate, Virgil, McAllister, Gravenberch, and Mo being your fulcrum at the top. In all three key areas, players that have been here for multiple years are still going to be here and kind of creating the consistency. I think if you're changing the left wing, you're adding a new 10, the fullbacks, I don't think it's as big of a deal. I know it's large when it comes to Trent, obviously, because he played a large point. But when it's in the midst of that team, I think the spine of that team is still there. And I think that consistency allows you a little bit more leeway when maybe making 5 changes around those 6.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, I genuinely believe we're going to have 6, 7 signings, and I think one new player is going to start against Bournemouth, and that's Verts. He's the only player that I think starts against Verts that wasn't in the side last year. I honestly believe you will see Bradley at right back, Robertson at left back, Kanate and Virgil, Ali, Soboslai, McAllister, Gakpo, or Diaz. I mean, I think it's going to be a very consistent side against Bournemouth and at the early part of the season. I think they'll bed those players in. I think if you were making all those changes, I think that could be a really, really big deal. But I think we're overblowing that a little bit. And I think when you have the ability to sign players like Rodrigo, Verts, even Ekitike at his age, I think you take those opportunities. And I think what we're seeing right now is Liverpool focusing this summer as if it were like the opportunistic time to make these purchases because funds are available, players are available, and because we've set ourselves up for it by not spending for years. And I think we'll see light spending for the next few years. I think this is basically a setup.
Michael says Kirkes and Frimpong will start. I know about Frimpong.
That seems like a
I
lot
do
of
feel
change.
like Kirkes might start, to be honest with you. But I mean, really depends on what happens with Robertson and stuff like that too. I mean, how about you, Bickler, in that tone? Because I do understand what Gally's saying, and I do agree to a certain point. When you change I mean, if you don't change your backs, which I mean, eventually you will, I would think so. But if like obviously change those, your center forward is changing. If you bring in Rodrigo, I'm assuming Gally's right where Gakpo will start, but then might lose that spot eventually and stuff like that. How much of a concern is consistency, if any?
I mean, I certainly think there's a concern there. I think it's helped by the fact that your spine is somewhat still intact. Like if you're going up the center between Verge, your goalkeeper, your midfield is largely intact with the addition of Ertz. But yeah, I think I do worry a little bit just about the amount of changes, but I think I think my worry is not only on the pitch, but what does this team look like off the pitch because they've been tight for so long, right? So I think there's enough leadership in place there, and there's a good enough sort of culture that's been in branded in the club at this point where it's probably fine. I just worry about it, especially when you have a lot of young kids coming in from all over the place. So, but I think it'll be fine. Like I said, I think it's helped by the fact that the spine is somewhat intact there.
Brian says building a traditional side is something we failed to do, and I think yeah, I mean you're taking advantage of last summer, and honestly I feel like you're almost like saying, I hope you guys are full because we're not going to eat a lot next summer unless there's like a bunch of opportunities and maybe address the back line and stuff like that. Dara says we haven't even seen preseason. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much you look at preseason
Yeah,
lineups, and that's why I don't put a lot of stock, for
It
example, when
wasn't.
Nunez scoring goals.
I
But I don't think, I mean, if you look at last preseason, then you would
we would have
have
been starting
Carvalho,
Cavallo.
Sepp,
I
I
mean,
and
wasn't.
all those guys in the starting lineup. These preseason, especially the early preseasons, I feel like are more about building a market than anything else, really. Because I
And
mean,
I
all
wasn't
these players
saying
have
that would
been.
be the starting lineup for the Premier League this season. I said that would be the starting lineup in 3 weeks for the first home match. And I do believe that Arne Slot will, to Paul's point, think about what has been built here for the last few years and who has put in what time. And yes, I think if he can and all people are equal, I think he will allow Kirkez to watch the first 45 minutes at Anfield instead of going out there in front of a crowd for the first time ready to cheer on champions. And they'll reward Andy Robertson for being someone who helped deliver that championship and build this team. Like, I think he is going to try his best to allow these guys to bed in the way Klopp might have with a much faster turnaround than what we've seen in the past. But do I expect there to be 5 or 6 changes on opening day at Anfield on a Friday afternoon? I absolutely don't. And I think it would be unrealistic and unreasonable to think he would, especially when you got to go to Newcastle next and then host Arsenal right after it. Like, it seems to me like this will be something where they will strategically start to work players in. And I hate to say it, I think there's a reason we saw what we saw in the second half last in the little 15-minute friendly, where he deliberately played Soboslai at the right back because he knew they'd be playing a low block. And he wanted to see what that boxed four-man midfield would look like and playing more of a back three. He then brought on Frimpong and Bradley to play together because he wanted
Yeah.
to see what Frimpong would look like playing on the wing. I This idea that we have an idea of what Slot is going to do. I love Kirkez. I was asking them to sign the guy in January, and I think I wrote Robertson off by about November of last year. So I don't want to make it out like I'm some
Yeah, you're one of the
nostalgic
ones who
homer.
wrote him off early. Dang it!
I, I just feel like we're 3 weeks away, and I don't think there'll be that much we see between now and then. That means that we're going to see 5 or 6 players move into a starting 11. That to me, that would make me have the questions about the continuity and what we're doing here. Because I don't think starting 5 new players on the opening match of the opening match of a season is the way you kick off defending a title. I think by October, all 5 of those guys are first team 11 players, and that's why they're being purchased.
That'll be interesting to see because I think like Michael was saying, like I mean slots. I mean, we know the whole Dutch direct, not as sentimental, a lot more like harsh compared to like Klopp and stuff like that. I don't. It'll be interesting to see like how he handles it. To be honest with you, to see
It's crazy to me.
especially like the Jota thing being home, Anfield. Does he handle that? I can almost make a case for both Bickler. I can make the case that Galley's making, for example, in terms of the continuity, but because of like the emotions and stuff, I know they have a game at Anfield before, but still the emotions and stuff of that game, I can also make a case for putting more players out there that'll be affected less, even though it will be their first time at Anfield at a serious game, so they'll have the Anfield impact. But I can kind of make a case, the devil's advocate, and say, well, you throw, Kirk is out there, even though he'll be like, emotional, not as much as Robo, and his mind will be in the game kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make an argument for either way, right? I just don't think that I think everything that we've seen from Arne Slot is that he's going to play what he knows and then put things together slowly. I mean, that's what he did throughout the course of the season. Um, and I think we expected to see like almost more of a. I think we expected to see more aggression from him in terms of like the way that he rotated players and the changes he made. And we found kind of the opposite down the stretch. He actually didn't make that many changes in general. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, how do you want to look at that? Maybe you look at that as like he made his mind up on players and like we moved in the market and those players are the replacement. I think it's going to be a slow roll on these players. I think that he has proven that he's a savvy and smart enough manager to know that you can't throw kids from another league into a starting 11 on the opening week of Premier League. It just doesn't seem like something that I could see him do.
I think one thing we've seen with him, and honestly, the first like 10, 12 weeks or whatever, we constantly talked about like the adjustments he made at halftime and stuff. I think one thing that was very different to us last season, especially in the beginning, was how much more likely for them to make changes and subs and stuff like that compared to like what Klopp did before, like waiting till like 70, 80. Whereas, I mean, heck, like first game, he yanked Kwanzaa at halftime and stuff. I do want to kind of touch up on this before we like kind of like move on the whole Chiesa thing. I'll start with you, Bickler. I mean, obviously there were he's not traveling with the team. Even though he did play against Stoke, and even though it's a tap and he scored a tap and goal, but he did play in that game. I mean, the rumors were obviously there's an offer he's going to sell, similar to the Isak thing when the Isak thing happened. But there was also a rumor that it was like a fitness thing. To me, really, the fitness thing spells the same thing as the offer thing, because a player who could not give a lot last year because of fitness issues, if he has already a fitness issue in July 21st, I don't think he's here for the long run. Is that like a sign that he is moving on regardless of how good the offer is?
Probably. I don't think I'll ever really understand the situation because I don't think he
I
always
don't think anybody does
yeah,
except Slot.
like I don't think the results on the pitch seem to like warrant like the clear sort of dislike that the manager has for this player. I'm not it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I mean it's definitely I think it's entirely different from the Isak situation, which struck me as a manager who just didn't need to or want to deal with that kind of distraction at this juncture of that squad's like development through the preseason. This one feels a lot different just because we've seen what this has looked like throughout the course of the season. Um, I don't get it, man. I don't get it because to me, it's a player that has the quality and has the stuff there and can play across four positions up front, which you would think that you would need. So I won't ever get this one. I can't wait till we get the book that comes out eventually on this.
Or the Netflix
Yeah,
documentary and stuff.
yeah.
Dara, man, what kids have we signed? See, you and I, when we
Good
say
lord.
things like that, we show our
Yeah,
age because these
yeah.
guys are ultimately really, really young, coming from a different league, different country, and all that kind of stuff. But Yali, same case, a question to you. Why? I mean, does that spell? Like I said, when I heard that, I was like, "That's no different. It's the same rumor ultimately." Because if there's a fitness issue, there is an issue, and he's not going to be around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a fitness issue. I think they realize that they have I think they realize that they're done, they're cutting their losses. I think they knew he wasn't going to go out on this tour. They played him yesterday probably to get more minutes and maybe to run it out there. He actually played well by all accounts. I think he had four shots on goal, one off the post, and then hit the tap in. So it's not like when he scored the goal, the announcer was like a goal he surely deserves. Like he had played really well. He had linked up with other players. It's not going to work for him. I don't think he has the work rate to make the manager happy. And I think there's something about the way he operates. You see him, he kind of glides around. Um, just hasn't worked for him. I don't think he keeps up with the physicality of the Premier League, and I think that's a bigger fear, and that's why there's constant fitness issues. So I think you sell him back to Italy. He wants to move back to Italy. He wants a shot to get into the Italian World Cup squad if they do qualify. So I think you cut your losses. I mean, it's not even going to be a loss. They won't sell for a loss. They paid 14 million for him. They're going to make sure they profit of some kind. And you get those 140,000 wages off the books, and you reallocate that probably. It's not going to be cheap if you do sign somebody like Rodrigo. If you sign another striker, it's not going to be cheap. But what it's not going to be is some, you know, aged out striker, 30-year-old from the Premier League. Like Michael Edwards and them are not spending 40 million on Ollie Watkins or buying Vissa or buying any of these players. Like that is not a Michael Edwards signing. They are not buying a player that the day you sign him, he is worth 15% less than
Yeah.
what you
They
just
don't
paid
buy
for.
cars. Yeah.
Never. Correct. They don't take anything off the lot that loses value. They'd rather go for that high-end Italian machine and find out it's a lemon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I feel like, sadly, it's probably a similar scenario for Dance, too. If you cannot make this trip and get like a proper preseason, we were talking about him, I think it was like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. Like, could he be a possibility and stuff like that? Or he's like the most likely. The whole injury fitness thing kind of like already kind of really hurts the kid's case. I think, probably being loaning out. Mind you, how was Chiesa not strong enough in the league where we're trotting out Costas out there day and night, for freaking God's sakes, is a mystery to me. But as we head out over here, um, Pickler, prediction time. This time, I don't think any one of us guessed we would have Ekitike here by the time we have the next Monday's podcast. But do you see any of these movements happening over the next week while we're actually away traveling?
Yeah, I mean, I could see not only us bringing somebody in, but I could see departures too. So I think that's probably the most likely. I think you're going to see somebody from that front six moving out, and I could see this rapidly developing into a new transfer to for another attacking player. You could also see the Gahey thing get like revived and brought back to life. So yeah, there's lots of possibilities out there.
Oh, something is beeping. I don't know what is beeping, but Gally, how about you? Maybe I'm just hearing it myself, the beeping over here. But in the background, as long as nobody else is hearing it, I'm
Yep,
just going nuts. Leave me
nobody's hearing
alone.
it.
Uh, it's these walks. My body is getting ready for the walk over here. Gally, your prediction before we head out?
Um, Gahey signs by the end of the week, if possible, to get him on tour.
Okay, I'll go with that. I think he's a key part in terms of, especially if we're gonna talk. We didn't get a chance to talk about it much, but if we talk about Konate and what we can possibly do with him, I know there was some talk of him getting in-store credit for him at the Real Madrid's store for Rodrigo or something like that. So it'll be. I mean, finally things are happening though. We have our center forward. We have matches coming up over here. So and we're what like 4 weeks away from the season. Obviously, 3 weeks away from the podathon. So, final reminder for that. Please, please, please pass the word for the podathon for our sponsors. Have a great week, everybody. That's it for us this week. We'll see you guys same place, same time, same channel, hopefully with new players. So, take care.